there, welcome to Constangy TV's Close Up on Workplace Law, where we zoom in on recent developments of interest to employers, their attorneys, and their human resources professionals. I'm your host, Leigh Tyson. I'm a partner in Constangy's Atlanta office, and I'm glad to have you here today. So when we were trying to decide what to do this episode about, what the subject should be, we were trying to think of something sort of timely, and it occurred to us that for the last 2 years, people have been mostly at home. They had a lot of time to fill and had to think of some creative ways to fill that time. Seeing as most people probably didn't spend the last 2 years playing chess with their dogs, it seemed like now's probably a good time to brush up on pregnancy accommodations and your obligations under the law, just in case that pops up in your workforce. I was lucky enough to talk to Lara de Leon, who is a partner in our San Antonio office, and she walked me through 3 of the major pitfalls that employers can face when dealing with pregnancy in the workforce. So Lara, welcome.
Thanks, Leigh. I'm so glad to be here.
And I am so glad to have you. So let's start, actually, before we even get into any of these pitfalls, let's just start with the legal definition of pregnancy, because I understand it's a little bit more expansive than just meaning gestation at this point.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the state laws requiring pregnancy accommodations specifically define pregnancy as including, in addition to the actual period of being pregnant, but all matters related to pregnancy, such as childbirth or recovery from childbirth, even having miscarriages or a stillbirth, or even an abortion. They cover trying to get pregnant or trying to avoid getting pregnant, and the period during which a mother might be nursing, which could be as much as a year or sometimes even more after the baby is born.
Really, this could have been pregnancy pitfall number 1, is thinking that pregnancy just means pregnancy.
3, even the federal law, which prohibits discrimination based on pregnancy or pregnancy-related conditions, has been interpreted by some courts and governmental agencies to be just as broad. So it includes virtually anything related to reproduction.
So when it comes to the employer's obligation to accommodate, that doesn't go so far as to say that they have to accommodate something like contraception, does it?
No, I mean, that's right. I mean, generally, the employer obligation in that situation would be to avoid discrimination against that employee. The most significant areas where accommodation comes into play are either during pregnancy, meaning like during the period of time being pregnant, right, or gestation, if you want to say, or during the period that the new mom is nursing and might need breaks or a private space during the workday.
Okay, well, we're going to return to that. I'll talk to you later on about breastfeeding stuff. Pitfall number 1, how do employers screw up?
Okay. Pitfall number 1 is called not accommodating pregnancy because it is not covered by the ADA.
Is it? Is it not?
Well, a normal or uncomplicated pregnancy is not considered to be a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The reason being is that a pregnancy is of a generally limited duration and you get over it after about 9 months or so, typically speaking. But a pregnancy with complications might be depending on the situation.
Okay, so assuming a normal, uncomplicated pregnancy, ADA is not going to come into play?
Right. I mean, not based on the pregnancy itself, but even a woman with an uncomplicated or normal pregnancy might have some lifting restrictions, or she might need some time off work for prenatal visits, or need some bed rest, or need a chair, or some other temporary issue. The ADA in that instance doesn't give her a right to a reasonable accommodation, But the Federal Pregnancy Discrimination Act would, at least as it's currently being interpreted by the courts and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And as we've already discussed, many state laws are already requiring employers to provide accommodations to their pregnant employees.
Okay, using the example you just gave about lifting restrictions. So something an employer can do if they're faced with these lifting restrictions based on pregnancy, they can either get some sort of machinery that makes lifting easier, or they could temporarily transfer those duties to another coworker until the pregnancy resolves. Are those good solutions?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing that employers should consider. The second pitfall is a really bad one, and it trips up a lot of employers, and that is not giving light duty or make work to an employee who has pregnancy-related restrictions.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is one that's kind of important for people to understand, because usually under the ADA, there's no obligation to create a job. We're allowed to require our employees to be able to perform the essential functions of their jobs. And that's when we have to accommodate, only if they can perform those essential functions. There's no obligation to make work or to create a whole new job or anything. So what's the difference here?
Yeah, you're right. And you're right, it's complicated, especially since we have been primed to think we don't have to create a job for an employee in a disability context. But think about it this way. Many employers, if not most employers, give light duty or make work to employees who have on-the-job injuries. Sometimes it's real work, like a vacant job or an office job, but a lot of times it isn't. And it might only be intended to keep the employee in the workplace, to give the employee something to do for workers' comp purposes.
Yeah, so in other words, we're not talking about a real job that you're creating.
Right. And workers' comp carriers love it. And many employers do too, because it keeps their workers' comp premiums low. But if an employer gives the sort of make work or creates light duty jobs for people with workers' comp injuries, the EEOC says that they may have to do it on the same basis with employees who have conditions that are not work related, including pregnancy.
Yeah, and I bet that comes as a big surprise to a lot of employers.
Yeah, it absolutely has.
Okay, so if you have a loading dock employee who 90% of the job is loading, and now they have these lifting restrictions and they can't be doing that, and we can't just send them out on FMLA now until the pregnancy's over.
Yet not if the employee wants to keep working and the employer has a practice or a policy that gives make work to employees who have similar restrictions because of workers' comp injuries.
What's up for number 3? What's our third pitfall?
All right, our third and final pitfall is what I call curb your enthusiasm.
Okay, and I'm taking it has nothing to do with Larry David.
Nothing to do whatsoever. And what this really relates to is talking about pregnancy in the workplace. And supervisors may have a lot of reactions to the news of a pregnancy. They might be elated because they love babies and it's a big family type of situation, or they might be really upset because perhaps the timing isn't right from a business perspective, or perhaps they just hired the employee and the employee didn't disclose a pregnancy while interview. But whether it's a positive reaction or a negative reaction, it's really important to remember that this is a very sensitive time for the employee and others in the workplace. And anything that you say related to pregnancy could be used against you.
Pretty much. So it's probably best just to keep all those opinions to yourself before you just create a whole bunch of evidence to be used somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely right. Be professional, be caring, say that's wonderful, I'm happy for you. But certainly avoid any snide or negative comments. But even on the happy side of things, don't take it any further and start asking about their side effects. Your wife might have had experienced something while pregnant. Don't ask your employee if she has the same condition. Just be smart about it, but be professional about it too.
I'm guessing one of the things that you would recommend is not asking to touch the pregnant person's belly.
Yes, we don't rub the belly.
No, not rub the belly. We are not a Buddha. That is not the thing. Good way of putting it up. So basically the solution is put a lid on it. People don't need to hear your opinion about their pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so this has been really helpful. We've gone through our pitfalls. I think we got those all handled, but I did want to circle back and talk really briefly about breastfeeding accommodations. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Absolutely. Just very quickly. So federal law and many state laws require employers to provide breaks for nursing mothers so that they can have time to express milk during the workday. Employers also have to provide a private location for this to be done, with a lock on the door and a place for the mother to store the milk until the end of the workday.
And that private space cannot be a bathroom.
No, it cannot.
Okay. Well, Laura, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that's it for this edition of Close Up on Workplace Law. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.